All right, we just hit the 2-hour mark, so I'd like to, in the interest of time, go ahead and get started. First, I'd like to welcome everyone for joining us today for our workshop, Cultivating Resilience, Compassion, and Mindfulness. My name is Matthew Piecha. I'm with the Center for Practical Bioethics. I've got a couple of kind of technical housekeeping items to get through, and then I'm going to hand it over to John. So first, I'd like to let everyone know that these sessions are recorded, and they will be posted to our YouTube channel after the conclusion. So if you go to YouTube and you search for Practical Bioethics, you'll find our channel there. You'll be able to find this workshop as well as a bunch of other programs related to medical ethics and bioethics, and lately a lot of stuff related to the COVID-19 pandemic. So we encourage you to take a look there, review any of this material, share it with colleagues, and that sort of thing. Two, I'd like to let everyone know that we keep these sessions discursive. So if you ever have any questions that you would like to submit to the speaker, or just general questions that you would like to have be a part of the discussion, please check out the Q&A function. You can submit questions there, and we'll be keeping an eye on them throughout. We're expecting a pretty big crowd for this one, so we're going to get through as many questions as we can. But there's a possibility that we will have quite a few of them. So we'll just do our best. So keep an eye out for that. And I think that covers it for me. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to John Carney, the President and CEO of the Center for Practical Bioethics.
Thank you, Matthew. And good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the workshop, Cultivating Resilience, Compassion, and Mindfulness. It's sponsored by the Center for Practical Bioethics and presented by Dr. Barry Curzin, who is the personal physician to the Dalai Lama and founder of the Altruism in Medicine Institute. As Matthew said, my name is John Carney, and I am the president and CEO of the center. This free 2-hour Zoom event will provide practical tools for coping with and recovering from the uniquely stressful demands of the COVID pandemic. The workshop was designed especially for frontline healthcare workers in recognition of your tremendous sacrifices over the course of the last year, and it's underwritten by benefactors of the center. We are indebted to all the nearly thousands of you that have registered for this event, and the workshop will be recorded, as Matthew said, and will be able to be accessed by your colleagues, friends, and family at a later date. Our host, Matthew, will be detailing that again for you at the close of today's session. Before my colleague, Dr. Ryan Ferdehert, introduces our presenter, Dr. Kerzin, I'd like to recognize a very special woman whom we remember every year about this time, Joanne Berkeley. Joanne was a community leader and volunteer advocate for the center for decades, and her insatiable curiosity for how bioethics impacts all of us daily was one of the inspirations for today's convening. She too would want us to honor all of you for your work and offer our support and encouragement for your recovery. Her beloved husband, Bert, her children and grandchildren are devoted supporters of the center, and our thanks to them as well for making today happen. And with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Ryan Ferdehert, one of our colleagues at the center, who will introduce Dr. Kerzin. Thanks, and enjoy the workshop.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the workshop, Cultivating Resilience, Compassion, and Mindfulness, brought to you by the Center for Practical Bioethics. As John said, I am Ryan Ferdehert, and today I have the honor and the privilege to introduce our featured presenter, Dr. Barry Curzin. Dr. Kerzin brings with him a unique background and also wonderful experience. He serves as the personal physician to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, as well as academic appointments at the University of Hong Kong and the University of Washington, Tacoma. I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Kerzin during my time in Tacoma, Washington a few years ago. There, I was able to spend time with him and hear his message, and also, more importantly, see the value of his work. I can speak firsthand about the impact his work and perspective on compassion, humility, and resiliency can have on providers and through them their patients. The time he spent with us in our health system was a culture-changing event in which we worked to incorporate his lessons and methods, and we saw the results. So it is with great honor and humility that I welcome Dr. Barry Curzin.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Ryan. And thank you, Joan and Bert and family. I'm very happy to be with you here once again, 2 weeks later in Kansas City virtually. And we're going to talk about a way of life. We're not only talking about resilience and compassion and mindfulness, we're talking about a way to live a healthy, happy life. So really, we're talking about attitudes. So these few slides are just giving a little bit of background to our nonprofit, Altruism in Medicine Institute, AIMI. I also share fond feelings and memories of our time together that Ryan and I and others spent at the University of Washington, Tacoma, and some of the major medical centers in the community. It was a wonderful time, and those kind of memories live on, they don't die. So there you can see the address if you're interested, altruismmedicine.org of our website for Altruism in Medicine Institute. Come join us and ask us questions, get involved if you feel so moved. So let's begin. We'll divide these 2 hours into 4 sections, probably taking a break after the second section, so roughly in an hour. And we will divide each section into different parts. I'll talk for a few minutes, then we'll have some time for question and answers. And during our last section, where we'll talk a little more about meditation, what it is, what are the benefits, we'll also do some meditation together. So let's start. I'm going to change the order slightly and put it in an order that I think is more related to experience. So I'm going to start with mindfulness. So first, let me define mindfulness. So there are 2 types of mindfulness from my perspective. One is with a capital M, so-called with a capital M, and that's kind of a metacognition. It's when we observe in the present moment inside, what's happening in our life, our cognitive mental life. What are our thoughts? What are our feelings? What's our mood? What's our emotion? So being able to cultivate that ability, mindfulness with a capital M, in the present moment to observe our inner world, our thoughts, feelings, emotions, etc. That is one aspect of mindfulness. The other aspect I call mindfulness with a small m, and that is concentration. That's training our minds to be less distracted. Now, you might want to call that meditation. That's okay. It would be one of the 2 types of meditation. One being concentration or focused meditation, mindfulness with a small m. And the other type of meditation we call contemplative or analytic meditation, where we actually do some thinking during part of the meditation. So it would be this mindfulness with a small m would be similar to that first type, concentration or focused meditation or shamatha meditation. Good. So why is mindfulness important? Well, mindfulness becomes the vehicle. It becomes the method that we can use to transform our minds. Is it the only method? No. Is it an important method? Yes. So along with learning how to be in the present moment and observe our inner life, along with that, we also need to study and to learn some of the transformative methods, and we'll present a few during these 2 hours to transform or change our negative stuff into positive stuff. For example, anger into tolerance or patience or compassion, jealousy into appreciation, arrogance or pride into humility. And that's a word that Ryan, Dr. Ferderhert mentioned that we did together when we were a number of years ago at the University of Washington in Tacoma. So then mindfulness becomes almost a tool. It's not an end in itself. It's a tool to help us reduce and transform our negative emotions into their positive opposites. It also is a tool to help us go deeper in our mind with positive qualities cultivating positive qualities such as compassion, resilience, and also wisdom, to be able to know who we are correctly and what the world is correctly. So that's a general understanding of mindfulness. It's a word that is not often used outside of this context in English. The word in Tibetan, which mirrors the word in Sanskrit, is also translated as to remember, if it's a verb, or memory, if it's a noun. So basically it's remembering, healthy, good stuff that helps us transform negative to positive. Okay. So in addition to the mindfulness ability to be able to be in the present moment, observing our thoughts and feelings, etc. In addition to that, we have to also learn about some of these transformative methods that we will apply once we've identified the negativity in our own experience. Okay, so again, we'll talk about some of those. I'll mention how to work with anger. I'll mention briefly how to work with jealousy, to transform them into their positive opposites. Good. Okay. The whole field that we call emotional hygiene is dealing with first recognition, and then secondly is transformation of our negative thoughts and feelings and emotions. Okay. Negative here means harmful. They're harmful to us, and if we act out on them, particularly the aggressive ones, they can be harmful to others, like anger and jealousy, etc. Good. Okay. There's another area which I call healthy self-confidence. And this is something that we can work with once we've developed to some degree the tools of mindfulness, so that when we can recognize that we're not in a mental state of healthy self-confidence, we may be in one or the other of the two extremes, one of which is putting ourselves down, doubting ourselves, criticizing ourselves, negatively judging ourselves. That's on the one side. On the other side is the opposite, when we say, I'm the best. I know everything. I'm smarter than everybody. I am more beautiful and handsome than everybody. Arrogance. Okay. So healthy self-confidence is finding how to navigate between those two extremes of self-criticism and criticizing others. Okay. So that's another area that we would begin to work with and cultivate once we have at least, beginning tools of mindfulness. Very good. So I would like to actually stop here and see if you have some early questions.
And once again, I'll just remind people that there's a Q&A function. You'll find it in your toolbar. If you'd like to use that to submit questions, we'll read them into the conversation for you.
So if we don't have any questions yet, it means I've got to warm you up. I've got to get you to let go of that hesitancy that maybe says, wow, it's a stupid question. I can't ask this in public. Okay. To let go of that hesitancy and please ask if you have a question.
And we've got a couple rolling in now.
Very good. Please go ahead.
We have one that says, is it important to find a quiet space for these activities?
Yeah. You figure that out. Some people like to do it in a quiet space. They're less distracted. Other people feel more comfortable when there's maybe some music or, some noise going on. So you figure out which is best for you. When we do the actual meditation, which we'll do more in our 4th of 4 sessions, then a quiet place is very helpful. Yes.
We've also got one here from Jessica. It says, can you please repeat, maybe say a little bit more about emotional hygiene?
Yes, I plan to do that in the second section, the one coming up. So if you will forgive me, I will say much more about it in the upcoming session, the next session, please. Thank you.
And then I have one from Magali that says, how can we recall on memories that subconsciously trigger us?
That's a good question. I think it's not easy. I think we need to deeply relax inside to allow that memory process to evoke those so-called unconscious memories. It's not going to be easy. So, you know, I don't necessarily recommend psychoanalysis, where you sit on the couch 7 days a week with your therapist to evoke or uncover those unconscious memories. I mean, if you like to do that and you want to do it, I think it's great, but I'm not necessarily recommending that. So I'm more practical. And if you find some of the effects of those things that you think there's some hidden memories, go ahead and work on the effects. Let's say you get anxious a lot. Let's just work on the anxiety. Or let's say you have a lot of fear. Let's work on the fear. And then by doing that, you might trigger some of those closed memories. But even if you don't, you work on the practical stuff that's happening with you now. And I think that's where the rubber hits the road.
And I think maybe we have one more for right now. It says, could exploring new knowledge be a part of mindfulness?
Yes, I think that is true. I'd have to put a small caveat on that to make sure that it's healthy new knowledge. So we don't want to have knowledge how to kill somebody. That would not be, part of, maybe technically it could be part of mindfulness, but it wouldn't fit in the whole package, which obviously includes compassion.
All right. I think that covers us for right now.
Good.
And I'll keep an eye on new ones.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Matthew. And I will then continue to talk a little bit more about mindfulness. It is something that the more we practice it, the better we get. Okay. And now some of you are already going to be able to drop into the present moment and observe your stuff. It may not be so clear, but you already able to start that. Other people say, what's he talking about? I can't do that. So please drop that self-criticism if you have it. I can't do that. Yes, you can. It's not so difficult. You just have to try. If it doesn't come, you try again. It's trying to be less caught up in the past and less caught up in the future. So the more we're worrying about what if, that's going to block us from being in the present moment. So if you notice that you're doing a lot of what if this, what if that, recognize that and try just to, allow that to sideline. You don't have to kick it out, but allow it to sideline a little bit, and that will help you drop more into the present moment. If you find that you're a big worrier and you keep going over the past again and again and again, try to recognize that and try to just gently sideline it so that you can be more in the present. Or sometimes worrying about the future, try to sideline it gently, and that'll help you drop more into the present moment. You can also do those activities where it's easy to be in the present moment. If you're a musician, and you're playing music, you're going to be in the present moment, most likely. Even if you're listening to music that you like, you're going to be right with the music. You're going to be in the present moment. Same thing as with artwork. Same thing as with many activities that we do that you enjoy. You're going to be absorbed. You'll be in the present moment. So do more of that. Also, I would recommend for those that are interested to do the meditation every day that we're going to talk about and do together in the fourth of these 4 sessions. Good. Relaxing, relaxing, and relaxing. I say it 3 times because it's very important. We tend to be tightly wound, and when we're like that, it's hard to relax, hard to be in the present moment. So sometimes breathing can help relax us when we're too tightly, wound up. We can take 3 slow, deep breaths, and they can be with your mouth open or closed. I like to do it with the mouth closed, so you're breathing through your nose, but either way, slow, deep, and just kind of, concentrate or be aware of your breath. You don't have to, do a lot of other stuff. You don't have to multitask. Just try to be aware of your breath when you're taking 3 slow, deep breaths. And if that doesn't work, there's something called 9-round breathing. And I won't go into that now, but if you're interested, we have an instructional video at altruismmedicine.org that can show you how to do that. And that will help calm down this kind of excitedness and being too speedy and being too anxious. Good. Okay. Mindfulness, as I mentioned before, is not a commonly used word in English, so don't worry about it. Just remember present moment, and then with a capital M, observing what's happening inside, your thoughts, feelings, attitudes. And with a small m, it means focusing your mind in meditation on a chosen object. Okay, that's all it is. We could use different words, but that's the word that's kind of caught on. John Kabat-Zinn, who is a very good friend of mine, and he's on our advisory board at Altruism and Medicine Institute, he didn't coin that term, but he was one of the very first people to make it sort of popular and to develop it, even do some research on it, and then use it clinically at the University of Massachusetts, where he had a chronic pain clinic, and he was treating people using this type of meditation, mindfulness meditation, people with chronic pain. It's very interesting because many of the people stayed with the program, and when you talk to them, you'd say, well, is it any good? Is it helping you at all? They say, yes. And then you'd say, well, that means you don't have any pain anymore? And they'd say, no. And you say, well, wait a minute. You said it was helping you and you had chronic pain. Now you're saying you still have the pain. What's the deal here? So, then you talk to them more and they'd say, well, I still have the pain, but I experience it much differently. And because of that, I'm able to be much more functional. I can keep down a job where I couldn't before. I can, stay with a healthy relationship where I couldn't before, things like that. What they learned to do was to be mindful and watch moment to moment, what's happening inside their minds. What are they thinking? What are the sensations in their body? So they no longer called this pain. They just watched the sensation, and it changes moment to moment. And they wouldn't give it a label, because when you label it and conceptualize it, it tends to amplify it. So by, having a different way to experience these things, dramatically had a dramatic positive influence on their lives. So that's John Kabat-Zinn, who's kind of considered the founder or father of modern mindfulness. Of course, these practices come from ancient, particularly Eastern traditions, both religious and non-religious, but also some more esoteric Western traditions also. Good. So I think let's take a 5-minute break, or actually, Matthew, do you have any more questions before we take our break? Let's do a few more questions if you have.
Yeah, we've got a couple more questions. I've got one here that says, oh, sorry, I just scrolled past it. When you say working on the exercise of mindfulness, are you saying unpacking the issues that have you stuck?
Yeah, sort of. What I mean is we're in training. We're training to be mindful, which means to be in the present moment, observing our thoughts and feelings. And then once we're able to do that a little bit, then when we notice negativity, we can begin to apply methods to transform our negativity into its positive opposite. So that would be maybe a slightly more clear way to explain it. But I think you're on the right path, yes.
I have one here that says, how do we learn to relax when many of us went 180 miles per hour in healthcare from May to January, and now things have abruptly just stopped? How do we actively gear ourselves back down to a normal gear? Will meditation help with this?
So the answer is it's not easy, firstly, okay? It takes little steps to kind of go in that direction. Doesn't happen overnight. Second, where there's a will, there's a way. So you really have to want to do it. And if you're not sure, then what I recommend is do a little research and see what would be the benefits of relaxing as opposed to not. And then if you do a little research or even think about it and you come up, with more, positive stuff to be relaxed than negative stuff or than to be non-relaxed, then you'll be more motivated to do it. Just a little bit like a smoker. If they want to stop smoking, but they're really not behind it, they won't stop smoking, or very unlikely. But if you really convince yourself it's in your best interests, that person has a much greater chance of stopping smoking. So that's the next point, to convince yourself that relaxation is good for you, your physical health, your mental health, or those of you that have a spiritual dimension, your spiritual dimension. And then on top of that, your physical stuff, reduce all the stimulants, so less caffeine. A little sugar is fine. A lot of sugar is not. So be careful with your diet. If you're taking a lot of, recreational stimulants, you may want to cut that down, because that's just going to keep you flying and then crashing and then flying and crashing. So you'll kind of miss the real, deep relaxation stuff. So I think those are ways to begin, and then start working with it, just start working with it. The things that we've talked about so far, and the other things that we're going to be talking about in the other 3 sessions, just try to, start working with them. And all of that will begin to move you in the direction of more relaxation. Physical exercise is important. If you can't get outside, then do it inside. That's real important. Trying to not do a lot of heavy duty stuff with your mind before sleep. Maybe the half hour before sleep, do light stuff. If you like to read something, that's light, or watch a little TV, but not the real hard driving stuff that'll keep you awake, or just relax and maybe have a conversation if you have someone in your home. Or just sit down and kind of relax. You don't have to do anything, actually, for a little while before you go to sleep. That will also help, and it'll help your sleep. In addition to that, put a little, some people have timers on their smartphones, a little ding or something. And then when you hear that every hour or whatever, do 3 slow, deep breaths. Or get up from your computer, and walk around a little bit and just, shake a little bit, all those little things to help you stay a little more relaxed. All in total, they help.
Yeah, there's a number of questions in here, and this kind of goes on with what you've been saying, just about sort of maybe distinguishing kind of like a deliberate break in your normal activities versus sort of like a modification in your sort of business as usual, right? So it's like kind of clarifying questions like, is the goal here to change the way that you are operating normally, or is the goal to work in a new practice that is like discrete from what you're already doing that plays a special role?
I think both. The end goal, if you will, would be radical transformation to happiness, and compassion's the real key to open that door. And then we have smaller goals that, before the end goal, and they're little, things that you do. I've mentioned a number of them now already that will help you, eventually reach that radical transformation of deep inner peace and joy.
All right. And Ryan, is there any that you've grabbed that you'd be interested in reading in here?
One in the beginning is, can you go more into the word in Sanskrit or Tibetan for meditation?
In Tibetan, it's gom. And as I said, it's often translated as memory or to be familiar. If we're looking at a verb, you know, it would be to be familiar, familiarization. And so often meditation is the process of familiarizing yourself with something wholesome and positive. So in terms of the concentration meditation, the familiarization is to be less, become familiar, you know, gradually, step by step, with being less distracted. And that brings tremendous benefit to our minds, to our hearts, to our physical health, to our mental health, our spiritual health. So, yeah.
And there are also several questions regarding pain and trauma and reoccurrence, and how do we address those?
I think there's none of us who are free of pain and trauma. So if that's true, we could equate it at least with part of life, okay? At least part of life is pain and trauma. So yes, you know, that's the grist for the mill, you know, that's the stuff that we're trying to work on, to not suppress it, but to literally transform it into healthy opposite, happy stuff, compassion, love. So that's a general statement. And as we go through the workshop, we'll be talking about particulars in actually doing that, transforming our pain and trauma into joy.
And kind of following on that, there's a question about specific sources describing how to change the experience of pain, like either videos or books, that sort of thing.
Yeah, you know, my go-to is Jon Kabat-Zinn's stuff. If you're a reader, Catastrophic Living, I don't have the name exactly right, but catastrophe is in the title. It's a big, thick book. He has others out, but he's very good on this topic because, you know, he's the founder of modern, or the father of modern, you know, mindfulness practice. And he's, you know, as a psychologist, worked for decades with people with chronic pain with a lot of success. So I would go to Jon Kabat-Zinn, Kabat-Zinn, and John is Jon. You'll find it. He's all over the internet.
It looks like a couple people are saying it's full catastrophe living.
That's
How to
it.
cope with stress, pain, and illness.
That's it. Big, thick book. You know, you don't have to read it all, but that's good. You know, I would also send you to our website. We have tremendous resources there, altruismmedicine.org, that can help you work with trauma and pain. I mean, that's what kind of we're all about.